To our Small Business Secrets to Customer Growth Masterclass, coming to you live from our studios here in beautiful Barangaroo, Sydney. I'm Cec Busby, editor of Business Builders, and I'm so thrilled you could join us today. But before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land we're meeting on today, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and pay my respects to their elders, past and present. We also extend that respect to any First Nations people who might be joining us for today's session. Now, if you're a small business owner and you're looking to grow your customer base, improve your sales strategies and get practical insights that you can actually use, well, you're in the right place today, because I'm joined by someone who's a total pro when it comes to all things sales and customer growth, Ingrid Maynard. Now, Ingrid is a customer growth sales expert who has worked with some of the biggest leading brands in Australia. She's helped teams and business owners just like you as well to shift from reactive sales to smart strategic selling. So whether you're just getting started or you're looking to scale, she's got some golden advice to help you grow. Welcome, Ingrid. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's really great having you.
Thank you for having me.
Excellent. Now, Ingrid, I'd just like to maybe get started with something pretty basic, which is, what does customer growth actually mean if you're in a small business?
Well, first of all, if you're just starting out in a small business, you need customers. so customer growth means getting some customers. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, if you're already in a small business and you've got some customers, customer growth might mean growing more from your existing customers, and it might also mean getting more new customers into your business.
What's more valuable, the repeat customer or the new one?
Oh, what a fantastic question. I think both are valuable. So if we just focus on our existing customers, it's fantastic because that's where all the profit lies. There's less effort to grow an existing customer because you've already built the trust there. They know you, they're used to buying from you, they're in a pattern of behaviour. So it's easier to get growth that way. However, the trap that a lot of small businesses fall into is that they focus only on their existing customers and they neglect to continue to fill the pipeline of new customers into their business. And if they neglect to do that, they end up kind of exhausting the customers that they have, and then they find themselves, maybe a customer might leave, maybe more than one leaves, and then they've got to scramble for the next. So it's important to have a really good blend of both.
Yeah, so before we dive into that a bit more deeply, you've worked with big businesses, you work with small businesses. Are there some mistakes that everybody makes when it comes to sales?
Yeah, 100%. I think when it comes to sales, it's really easy to focus on shiny objects. And it might sound counter to what I've just sort of said about existing customers versus new customers. However, sometimes we neglect what's under our noses. And that's why I think even if you're a small business, getting into a habit of having a sales pipeline is really important, because then it focuses on what we already have and what we need to focus on in order to convert that into sales. So when we have a sales pipeline, what I mean is understanding all of the opportunities that you have and the stages that they're at so that you can target your activities accordingly. And when you're having regular pipeline reviews, even if you're just one person and you've got a small business, this is a discipline that I would recommend, just to sit every week with a spreadsheet and say, okay, what have I got coming into my business? How much of that is ready to close? Am I focusing on those, or do I need to add more customers into my pipeline? Now that's in a B2B business, small business, but if I'm in more of a consumer-based business like hospitality or retail, I kind of know what I need to get on a daily basis in order to be profitable. And I need to play with some of those levers. And they say that sales solves all ills. I don't know about that so much, but it certainly goes a long way.
So why is it then that sales get such a bad rap? There's always this ick factor. We were talking before, you were saying at a party someone says they're in sale and you can see them, everyone else sidle away from them ugh. Why do people feel so uncomfortable selling?
Yeah, so you've just hit the nail on the head. There's two reasons for that, I think. You've got salespeople who are embarrassed to sell. And small business owners are no different to that. And so I think it's because they think that selling is all about convincing and persuading somebody to do something that they're not ready to do, which it's not. Of course it's
Oily.
not. Yeah, and using some kind of black magic in order to make that happen. And for customers, I think they don't like to be sold to, frankly. They like to buy, but they don't like to be sold to. And so if we're in the business of captivating new customers or getting more from our existing customers, we need to be really well practiced in the art of communication, of understanding what those customers' priorities are, so that we can align whatever it is that we're selling to that. And when we do that, it's not selling, it's actually enabling somebody to buy from us.
And so then does that remove that ick factor? Does that help with a mindset shift in a way?
I think it does. I think when people genuinely care about another human being who comes into their business and understands the gift that actually is, and they're genuinely connecting. I think customers know when it's genuine, and when someone really wants to know about them and cares about them, listens to them, asks interesting questions that maybe no one else has asked them. That's when I think that they stay a little bit longer, they start to relax, they let their guard down, and then a genuine conversation can follow.
So we're also talking a little bit before this as well about how there was this sort of, I don't know if it's a golden period or not, but when, marketing was doing all the work, so people didn't have to worry so much about selling because, their ad dollars were doing the hard work for them. Is it possible to have good sales and customer growth without having to spend like a ton of money on marketing?
Yeah, it is. It absolutely is. And it's the best way. But it takes a lot of work to do that. So you know that you're in the right place when a lot of that sales growth is coming organically. It's coming from word of mouth. It's coming from customers who love your business and love dealing with you so much that they're talking to their friends about you, they're recommending you, they're writing Google reviews about you. Because we've got to remember that customers will go on to Google first and review a business and then go, okay, well, other people like me are saying good things about this business, I might check them out. So there's that factor. But I think we always need a bit of a balance. What we can't do as small business owners is rely only on marketing to do the heavy lifting, because it's going to bring customers into our business, but it's what we do next that really matters.
Yeah, you were talking about that communication, the relationships. Yeah. Is that what business owners really need to be focusing on?
Yeah, so the first thing is really building trust with another human being, and we do that really quickly because people buy from us. And then buy from our business. They buy what we do after that. So if people aren't able to make up their minds, I would say in the first 30 seconds of whether or not this is someone I want to hear from, this is someone I want to do business with, all the marketing in the world isn't going to solve that problem. So that human connection is really important. So that's the first thing. And then once we've built trust, then we need to understand what's going on in the customer's world, why they came in or why they made an inquiry into what it is that we do, and then understand what their priorities and challenges are. Once we've done that, we need to really listen deeply, and then through the lens of what those priorities and challenges are from our customers' perspectives, then we can talk about how our product or service relates to that. And we've got to remember too that customers buy the job that our product or service does rather than the product or service itself, and that then gets us away from having a price conversation.
So it sounds like it's about being very customer centric then. So looking at that then, how does a business identify what their ideal customer is, who their ideal customer is?
I mean, a lot of business people watching this will probably say, anyone that wants to buy from me. But look, I think we go through stages in business, and this is a mistake. So we're told about an ideal customer, and if I'm just starting out, I need revenue, and I need revenue today. So I can't afford, when I'm first starting out, to be that choosy about who's going to buy from me and who's not. Over time, we get to know who our ideal customer is or who tends to find really good value. And when we talk about an ideal customer, it's someone who really values what it is that we do, products and services, but they also stay longer, they buy more from us, they buy more frequently, and they recommend other people. And that profile, we then go, okay, well now I know who that person is. So where are other people like them having conversations about the problems that we solve? And that's where I go looking for more customers like them.
So that's kind of the difference between just attracting any old customer and attracting the right customer, because you want that customer to, as you said, refer you to other people, to come back and buy more from you.
Yeah, that's right.
But you still do want those other everyday Joes coming in going, oh, yeah, I might buy a little something.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, revenue is king, you know, when you're first starting out. You know, just trying to kind of figure out the algorithm of who my ideal customer is, and then spending a fortune on marketing, and then, you know, someone comes in and into your business, you can't afford to turn them away. So it takes time to really build up a clientele, to really build up a predictable revenue foundation, really, and that's what small businesses need to do first. And then over time, you'll get to know who your ideal customer is.
And you mentioned Google reviews, which I think everybody looks for a Google review.
Yes.
For if they're going to a restaurant, they're going to look for a product that they want to buy.
Yeah.
So how, not just Google, but how important is customer feedback then in helping you grow your business and get new customers?
Yeah, it's critical. So
how can you leverage it, and also how can you ask for it?
Yeah, well, that's really important. So, I mean, immediate feedback is great. So I'd rather have a customer tell me in person, preferably, because I've sorted out what is going wrong with my business or what their experience might have been that I could improve on. And if I listen to that customer, I actually have a much higher opportunity of keeping that customer, believe it or not. That's where loyalty can really be cemented by solving that customer's dissatisfaction, who's an existing customer first and foremost. Second of all, it gives me opportunities then to recognise where there might be additional service offers or product offers that I can add to my existing suite of offers. And then what I can also do is I can understand too that our customers are saying certain things about my business, so I can highlight those features, I can highlight those products or services. And customers, so there's two reasons why customers make a decision to buy, and they're both influencing techniques, and this is where Google really can be our best friend. So when we understand that great service and great feedback is a tool that we can use, we understand that that comes through social proof. And so this is where a customer looks to people who are kind of like them, who have already had that experience to make a decision. So they go, well, they think it's good. I think I might try them out as well. There's that. The other thing that I think we need to do too is also be an authority in the space that we occupy. And I don't mean being in authority, but I mean being an authority.
An expert.
An expert, yeah. Somebody who says, I know my space. I'm not going outside of my lane, but I know my space and I know it really deeply and I know it really well. And these are the things that I bring to my customers, and I'm proud of that.
We've just had a question come through from Prue, and Prue is asking, how important are case studies and testimonials on top of reviews, and which are the best ways to use them?
Oh, thank you, Prue, for that question. That's fantastic. Look, case studies and testimonials are another example of social proof. And when we gather those, we need to be asking certain questions. So with case studies, I follow a good structure. It's called, the acronym is STAR. And I would be interviewing my customers to be able to extract and develop more and more case studies, because I can put those on my website. People can go and find out what it's like to work with me, what other people have found. The S stands for situation, So why someone came in, the problem that we're going to solve, the task ahead of us, so what we needed to do in order to meet that challenge or meet that priority, the approach that we took, and then the result that the customer was able to get. And this is key. So the result is the value delivered. So it's not just that they got the product and they were happy, it's what that product enabled them to do that without that product they wouldn't otherwise be able to do. And when we start to talk in our case studies about those sorts of situations, other customers go, wow, that's really compelling. I want to find out more too. And testimonials are different to that. So they're just a couple of statements that really quickly, in little sound bites, gives other customers or potential customers the opportunity to go, oh, okay, oh, I feel better about that. Oh, that's what they liked. Oh, maybe I'd like that too. Yeah.
And you should put a process in place where you're asking for them straight away.
Preferably. I mean, you know, you go into stores, for example, and they've got the smiley faces and you just press a button. I mean, what does that really give you as a business owner? It might make you feel good because you've got so many, you know, certain smiley faces, but it doesn't really give you anything tangible that you can use. So I think having a formal process, whatever that is for your business, that you execute with a little bit of rigour behind it, so on a regular, consistent basis, will give you the information that you need, and then it's what you do with that information and then how you use that information to help other people find you and trust you.
Yeah. So what would be some example questions that you might ask your customers when you're wanting to get feedback for reviews and testimonials?
Great question, Cec. So I would first of all be asking them, you know, what brought you in? I mean, that's a fundamental question that we can be asking anyway.
Yeah.
You know, when somebody makes an inquiry either onto an online business or comes into a place of work or sends us an email, you know, what brought them in? So that really starts to enable us to delve into the problem that they want to have solved or what they're actually after. The second thing is, you know, what made them buy from us? You know, and that will give, you know, us some fantastic information that other customers will go, you know, so that was their experience. Okay, well, that's really good to know. And then once they had that product or service in place, what it enabled them to do that they otherwise wouldn't be able to do. And it might be, you know, how do they measure that? What difference has it made to their day, to their week, to their month? And trying to get a measure of that value, I think that's key. We want to try and avoid blanket statements or generalisations. The more specific we can make that and more measurable we can make that feedback, the more credible it will be for other customers reading it and the more meaningful it will be for us as well.
Yeah, so if you run like a driveway cleaning business, make sure they're specific about the nitty-gritty of how you got rid of the moss in all the grooves or something quite tangible for other people that are looking for that service.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's the moss that's removed, but it's also what it means to have a clean driveway. You know, does it mean...
the aspirational side of things.
Because that's the job of the moss cleaning business, isn't it, is to have clean driveways. And so that might mean that I was able to sell my property faster, or it might mean that every time I drive past my driveway or drive out of my driveway or come home at the end of the day, you know, or I'm getting comments from my neighbours, you know, that I otherwise wouldn't have received, or it might be that my property value has gone up just because the front of my property looks really good. Yeah.
So let's go back to the trust piece, which you touched on quite early.
Yes.
How do businesses harness that trust and build that trust? It's a long game. It's something that can't be built instantaneously. They've got to build it over time. Should they be thinking about trust from day one?
Yeah, I absolutely think they should be thinking about trust from day one. It can be built in the short term and then it can be cemented over time. So people make a purchase decision, like I said to you, in the first 30 seconds. It's like, you know, I'm sitting next to you. Am I going to listen to what you've got to say? You know, are you interested in me, first and foremost, or do you see me as a dollar sign? that's going to spend money with you. And if I don't feel that you're genuinely interested in me as a customer and caring about me, it's a little bit harder to form trust. But trust is also formed before someone even comes anywhere near your business. So that's where those Google reviews and the research that customers do is really key. So there's that. And then there's the engagement. So once they're engaged with your business, whether that's online, whether that's in person, they get a sense of what it's like to work with you, and they make a decision then, am I going to buy or not? And then after that, how do we cement that? How do we follow that through? How do we build on that trust from that point onwards? And that is something that can be developed over time.
So let's move to their engaging with your business now. They're a customer. How important is that customer experience to getting the sale?
Can you say that again?
The customer experience, how important is having a great customer experience to developing a customer as a repeat customer, to getting an initial sale from them?
Yeah.
What do businesses need to focus on to make sure that they're delivering a good customer experience?
Yeah, well, the experience is something that I think unfortunately has gone out the door. I think we forget that regardless of where our customers find us, that the experience is key. So we need to make it easy for our customers to want to buy from us, and that's again where trust comes in. But then we need to make it easy for them to find the product or service that they're after by talking about it in terms of the problems that those products or services solve. So if I've got an online business and somebody's researching me, are they able to navigate through my website pretty easily so that they know where to go, what to explore, how we're going to solve that problem? Or if I come into a place of business, how easy is it for me to get what I want, to ask those questions, to find someone to actually speak with? And then it's the surroundings, again, that adds to the experience that somebody has. So whether that's online or in person. Questions are key. So training, I can't emphasise enough. You know, we think that people are born salespeople, and they're absolutely not. You know, the other day I was in a workshop and there was a lawyer there, and he said, I really believe that salespeople are, they're born. You can't create them. They've either got it or they haven't. And unfortunately, that's why sales has become a dirty word, is because we then say, well, what does that mean? That means somebody who can convince and persuade. Whereas the best salespeople I've actually found, and when we talk about small business owners, they are often the salesperson until they get staff who can do that function. They're the people that care the most about a customer, who genuinely want to be helpful, who want to help solve problems, who are really good listeners. So they're good at asking questions, and they're not just the basic questions, but they're questions.
Can I help you?
Yeah, can I help you?
Go away.
But do you know what, Cec? I'd actually be happy with a customer, someone in a store actually asking that question. Once upon a time, when I was doing training in the retail space, that would be something that I'd be trying to stop people from doing, because that was the only question that they ever asked. They'd be pouncing on customers as soon as they entered the store, asking, can I help you? And of course, what's the trained answer? No, thanks, I'm just looking. But today, oh my gosh, you can go into a store and someone will be on their phone or on the computer and they won't even make eye contact, let alone ask you any kind of question like, can I help you? I mean, that'd be a great start. But it's really about how we kind of read the customer as well. So, if let's just say we've got a bricks and mortar business, customers come in and I've made some small talk and I'm talking about stuff that makes them go, oh, I'm not going to be pounced on. Oh, I can relax here. And it might be about the weather. It might be, school holidays. We need to be prepared for those sorts of conversations. So we need to be practiced in the art of small talk. And then when we see that our customers are a little bit more relaxed, we can ask them what brought them in today. Have they been in before? Are they visiting? Are they locals? We can ask them a little bit more about that. That will give us some information too about, okay, if they're locals, we want to capture their information at some point. Might not be today, but we're going to invite them back in, and then I can find out a little bit more about what it is that they're into, the reason that they came into the business today. Then once I solve that problem for them and they buy from me, what is that experience like? Does all of that goodwill, that relationship that I've worked really hard to establish in the moment, disappear as soon as, you know, the credit card comes out, or, you know, the point of sale experience is there? And then how am I asking them to come back in? How am I inviting them to talk about us, to review us, to come back and tell us how it went? Am I even asking those questions? Because we think that, oh no, I don't need to say that because a customer knows, they'll come back in. But until we plant that seed, they might not think about that. They might not think about talking about us. So we need to plant those little seeds, and we need to have a process.
Speaking of little seeds, anyone out there watching, if you have any pointy questions that you want to ask Ingrid, feel free to drop them in the chat box. They get filtered through to me, and we can ask her, and you can get your problem solved, hopefully.
I'll try. Yeah.
So we've just talked a little bit about what a good customer experience looks like. But how do we turn someone that just comes in that first time into someone who's a repeat customer?
Yeah.
Is there a process?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a formula, and I call it becoming a magnetic business. And there's two elements to that. The first one is love. And you might think, God, what's love got to do with selling? I think it's got everything to do with selling. You know, when you have a love of people, when you love what it is that you do, and you've got really strong belief, that's infectious. People sense that. I think we're wired for connection, and they love that experience. They love that feeling, and they want more of it. So you've got that. But you can't just have that, because if your product or service isn't fit for purpose for what the customer came in for, then, you know, it's not going to necessarily make them want to come back. So you need value delivered multiplied by love, and that makes you magnetic. But in addition to that, I think the other thing too is we need to invite customers to come back in. We need to also have some skill around getting the customer to actually sell to themselves, dare I say it. So some of those techniques are questioning techniques that enable a customer to articulate out loud so that they can hear themselves talk about, you know, if they had this product and if they got it home, how would life change for them? How would that make things better? How would that solve the problem? Now, I'm talking in generalisations here, but it's that line of questioning that then invites the customer to talk about that product as if they've already bought it, purchased it, got it home, it's working, it's solved their problem. And because they're saying it, then they're less likely to argue with what it is that they've said, and it also cements their belief.
Stop it.
That's right, exactly. So they're not going to do that, and that's a skill that I think that we've lost. We think that selling, as long as you've got the product at the right price, you know, that's all we need. And in a market that's really tough today, where people are doing it tough, frankly. You know, every dollar counts, and if they're going to part ways with every dollar, they need to be certain that what they're buying is going to deliver value for them. And so before they make that decision, they need to be really clear about that value proposition. And we need to, I think it's on us to be able to create that.
So what are the kind of ways you would encourage a customer to leave your shop and be thinking about, you know, other products that they might purchase?
So I think today we're so lucky. We've got lots of technology that enables us to do that, and there are some fantastic, you know, point of sale software that can encourage us to record what someone's purchase history actually is. I mean, you'll find that, you know, some online sites are brilliant at doing that and remembering, and so they'll they'll reach out post-purchase and say, what did you think of that product or service? And not only ask for a rating, but perhaps even ask for some feedback on that. I mean, hospitality is really great for doing that. I mean, Airbnb constantly asks us, how would we rate that experience? And I think a lot of other accommodation sites that perhaps are smaller businesses are also following down that line of thinking. But let's just say we're not in that type of business. I think we can be reaching out. So if I was a bricks and mortar business, or even a small business that sells services, I would be looking at the customers that had bought from me, picking up the phone, dare I say it, and having a conversation. Hi, it's Ingrid from the Sales Doctor. Now, I just wanted to follow up. How are you finding whatever it is that they bought, Now, remember we talked about blah, 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 and you said this, reminding them of what they've said in the store. How are you actually finding that? Has it created that? Now, did you know that we've also got this in? Because you bought that, you might like this. We'd love to have you back in. We're having an event. We'd love you to be part of our community. Are we really fostering that kind of sense of community through the business that we have in order to make people feel part of something that's bigger than them?
Does there need to be kind of a give and take though? You don't want the relationship to be one-sided. You're just constantly asking them for something or them to do something. You need to, as you said, we've got an event, we'd love you to come along. It can't just be you going, buy this.
Well, no, but I think sometimes, like any relationship, it's never going to be even Steven all the time. And I think if we want our customers to buy from us and keep buying from us, we've got to put the effort in first, and that comes down to that principle of reciprocity. And so that means in order to get, we've got to give, and probably give value before we get anything back. And perhaps maybe giving 3 lots of value before we get anything back. I think if we give up too soon and go, I've made the effort and it hasn't worked, and then we give up, we're probably shooting ourselves in the foot, when actually we need to see it as a long game and continually wanting to give. Now, over time, I have found that customer relationships are rarely linear. So it's not just a one-to-one kind of relationship, but sometimes we might be giving a lot to a certain customer and we find that there might be another opportunity that comes our way, and we might not necessarily associate it with that customer, but actually it hasn't come directly from that customer, but it's come from good word of mouth from that customer, or from somebody else who's spoken to that customer and then has created that word of mouth, and then that other customer's come in. So if we play it one-on-one, I think sometimes we mistakenly could be cutting our noses off to spite our faces. And I think that we need to really always be thinking about, it's my job as a business owner, it's my job as a salesperson to be going out there to give. That's what I think good selling's all about.
I've got a couple of questions that have come through since we gave you a prod. All right, Danielle's asking, how do you actually approach a potential first-time customer when you're a professional business? Should you email directly telling them how you could assist them?
Oh, no, absolutely not. So the first contact ideally should be in person, whether that's over the phone. So let's just say that customer is not in a location that you could catch up with them in person in your professional services business. I think that at the very least, picking up the phone and having a conversation saying, but now before we talk about anything, let's get to know each other. Tell me a little bit about you. What made you reach out to me? What have you done before in this space? So that you get a bit of an understanding about what their expectations might be. And then I think a meeting in person would be the next step. And that if you can't catch up with them in person, at the very least have a Zoom or a Teams with them so that you can actually read them a little bit more. So when you're in person, you're making that connection. Now, Teams is okay. It was great while we had lockdowns and all those sorts of things, but being in person in front of somebody, there is nothing like it, because again, when we're talking about trust, we need to have that energy exchange, and we can read a customer, they can read us, they get a bit more of a sense of us, and that speeds up the buying process as well. So that would be what I would be suggesting to that person there. So please, please, please do not email and think that the email is going to do the selling for you. It's not. It's very transactional, and it's. I know why people do it, because they feel, I'm nervous. Yeah. I don't want to pick up the phone. I don't want to risk rejection. But all that person's doing is asking a question, and all we have to do is answer in person.
I think it's more so since COVID, people are more reluctant to have that initial face-to-face contact.
Yeah, it's a
like something has shifted.
Yeah.
A lot of people are more insular and nervous than they were before.
Yeah, I think they are too. I absolutely agree, and I think that's customers and business owners. You know, and I think we've just got to realise that was, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, and we've moved on, and the world is very busy. And if we're going to get a share of that customer's mind and heart, which is really where people buy from, we need to make sure that we're developing interpersonal relationships. Yeah.
Speaking of busy, Prue has popped in for another question, and she's saying,
I love Prue.
I'm finding it harder to engage customers. Is this indicative of what is happening as people juggle busyness? Do you have any tips to help get cut through?
Yeah, she's right. It is harder. And it's harder for a few reasons. I think it's harder because people don't have time. So they're usually distracted, busy, they've got a million competing focuses. So the best way is to pick up the phone or get in person with that customer and have a conversation, because, and that, sometimes we think, but a customer doesn't have time for that. They've just got an email, they just want that. Well, you can try that and it won't be effective. So really do make that first interpersonal connection. When you do that, you can really get a sense of what's going on in that customer's world. And when you demonstrate that you understand, all of the competing priorities that they've got going on, then you can work out, okay, so what are their top 2 priorities, or what are their top 2 challenges? And then you need to be able to align your product or service to either the top priorities that they have or their top 2 challenges, because without that, you won't be able to get relevance. And that's what I'm talking about with share of mind. And when we do establish relevance for our customers, they're more likely to buy, they're more compelled to buy, and they see the reason for that. They need to feel like they're walking away being able to go, yeah, that was a good decision. Yeah, I'm really glad I had that conversation. Yes, I'm going to take the next step. Yeah.
All right, a little bit of a curly one here from Darren. He says, hello, I'm deaf and I run an online business that provides people with the opportunity to learn Auslan sign language.
Wow, okay.
And they do that via an online course. I can't ring people, so is emailing them a follow-up upon purchase okay?
Well, I'm just wondering if he could maybe record himself on video in a way that gets a sense of who he is. So when he's signing through video, that person gets an immediate experience of what it's like to communicate with Darren. So if you're going to email Darren, I would absolutely be recommending that you send a video along with that, just so that people get a sense of who you are first.
Yeah, even like thank you for your purchase.
Absolutely. Yeah. This is who I am. This is why I went into business. This is why I'm so passionate about Auslan and people learning Auslan. Then people go, okay, yeah, I understand.
Yeah, and he can whack it on YouTube, it will caption it for him, and then he can download it.
Oh, Cec, you way ahead.
And send it out to these people.
Yeah.
All right, Maria asks, hi Ingrid.
Hello Maria.
Going back to your point about being an expert or authority in your area of expertise, where would you recommend speaking about that? I see LinkedIn might be the platform for this. Is there anywhere else you would recommend?
Yeah, so the places to do that, I mean, when we look at, we've got online and then we've got in person. The caveat for all of that is deciding where it is that your customers are having conversations about the problems that you can solve. And when you figure that out, and that's going to take a little bit of time, but when you figure that out, then you need to be there. And that's where you establish social proof through that, and you establish yourself as an authority in that space. So if you find that it's a mix, then you need to be part of that. So it might be that you need to go to business groups, chambers of commerce. That might be an event, it might be an expo, it might be a conference. That's the in-person space. Or it might be online. Sometimes TikTok's great for that. Sometimes, if that's your audience, you know, don't do TikTok if that's not going to meet your audience. Don't do Instagram if you don't feel that that's right for you or your business. I mean, I've never felt comfortable on Instagram. I'm only there because my marketing person does it all for me, because it just doesn't make sense to me. I just don't, I don't relate to it. So LinkedIn's my platform, because that's where most of my clients are going to be looking for people like me in a credible format. I use Facebook and Instagram, but that's usually because I'm following the advice of my marketer rather than that's instinctive for me.
Yeah. Michelle, another question here. Michelle says, in my local market, there is a competitor who actually copied my service but is not locally based.
Okay.
Am I approaching this in the right way by pointing out that I am a local business-based service and I have a 100% safety record, and that I have been in this business for almost a decade, a lot longer than the competition? The competitor seems to be getting more traction. What's the best approach?
I think it's a really good question. First of all, I would say that there's enough for everyone, so I wouldn't have a scarcity mindset with that at all. And flattery is you know, when people copy your business, it's the purest form of flattery. So just know that.
That's a bit of pill to swallow.
It is a bit of pill to swallow. However, you need to be talking about the things that your business does better than what
like
your
the
competitor
safety
is.
record.
Yeah,
and
safety
the
record, the longevity, the customers, the reasons that they buy from you, all of those things I think you need to focus on.
And your expertise.
Expertise is really key there, but it's the differentiators. So you need to know what you do better than them, and to be shouting that from the rooftops, but not necessarily in a direct way, but just really promoting the things that you know that you're strong in. You also need to know what your competitors are better than you at, and you need to be armed with the language of mitigating that, of taking that off the table straight up. So for example, let's just say that the competitor's really good at social media and promoting themselves, and you know, in spite of our great track record, we're not as experienced in that space, and we probably don't promote ourselves as much as we would. So we need to be able to have conversations with our audience that says, okay, you might not see me on social media that much, and that's because I'm busy delivering great outcomes, like the experience that so-and-so client had over here. They've been working with me now for 10 years, and that's not because I lock them in with a contract, but because I continue to deliver value for them. So we need to know. What I would say though is to stop looking over there all the time, because it's easy for me to say, I know, but when you see somebody doing exactly the same thing as you, but you know that you got there first, and you know that you're better than them, it's easy to stare. And we need to look, we need to glance, and we need to understand, but we need to bring ourselves back and have confidence in the fact that she's been around for 10 years. She's been delivering excellent outcomes for 10 years. She's got a great track record. And that's what I would be shouting from the rooftops.
I think I've only got time for a couple more questions.
Okay.
Let's say a customer says no.
Yeah.
How do you stay motivated then and turn that no to a yes? Or do you not worry about the no and just move on to the next thing?
I think every situation is different, and so there's no hard and fast rules about the no. I mean, some salespeople say every no that I get is closer to a yes, but they don't necessarily mean from that person. You know, it's okay. I think rejection is part of any relationship. You know, you've got to be prepared to put yourself out there and be rejected if you're going to be in business. It's one of those, just those truths. So if somebody says no, we need to understand why they said no, if we possibly can. And if we can't ask the customer, we need to have a reflection mechanism that enables us to go back and go, okay, so I didn't get the outcome that I wanted. Why was that? Where did it fall down? If I'm objective with myself and I'm really clear about what it was that I maybe missed, or where there was a disconnect with that customer, that might give me information that I can use to turn another customer into a yes. But if somebody says, okay, not right now, that's a very different no to a hard no. A hard no, I think, needs to be respected. Everyone has the right to say no. But if they say, well, look, that all sounds great, but look, I just can't afford it right now, or, yeah, I've got this other priority that I need to have in place first. I mean, that to me, that's a buying signal. And so I'd be finding out a little bit more about that other priority. And if they have that priority in place, how does that help them make a better decision about our product or service? So I think it's always just going in with curiosity. And when we do that, then we're more likely to listen, and listen with good effect.
It's good advice. And it's not always a hard no.
It's not always a hard no.
Yeah. So last question then, if you just had one thing that you could say to small businesses to do today if they want to grow their customer base, what would it be? Love
the customers you have. That would be there's two things actually. So I think love the customers that you have, treat them really well, let them know that you're grateful for their business, let them know that you'd love to do more business with them, first and foremost, and also prioritise the activities that are actually going to bring money in the door. I think a lot of business owners these days are told that social media or marketing is going to do the heavy lifting for them. It's not, it's them. And so just making sure that, okay, is this going to bring me closer to a sale today or not? And if not, okay, park it, focus on the revenue generating activities.
Love the customer.
Love the customer.
All right, thank you so much, Ingrid. It's been fantastic.
Oh, it's gone fast.
Yeah. That's a wrap on today's Small Business Secrets to Customer Growth Masterclass. Huge thank you to Ingrid Maynard for sharing so many practical tips and insights. I know everyone will be walking away with plenty of ideas about how they can take action straight away. So if you want to find out more about Ingrid, then head to salesdoctor.com.au. That's doctor with a DR, where you can also get a sneaky peek at the first chapter of her book, The Sales Revolution. And thank you to all of you for tuning in. We hope you're feeling inspired to reframe the way that you think about sales and customer growth, and most importantly, to back yourself and back your business. Remember, if you missed anything or you want to revisit today's session, we'll be sending out the recording very, very soon. Don't forget to check it out for more great resources and interviews and tools and inspiration and all the fabulous things small business. Then head over to businessbuilders.com.au. Until next time, take care, happy selling, see you next time.